Hello, I'm Tejas Gokul, and this is a presentation about my roommate's variety of English. I will be taking a look at his lexical variation, as well as interesting aspects of his phonology and lexical stress. Some key facts. My roommate was born in Baltimore, Maryland to Indian parents, and his family moved back to Bangalore in southern India when he was still a baby. He has returned to the United States for the past 2 years to attend the University of Arizona. First, looking at his lexical variation, during the interview, I had him identify a few common objects which have different names in Indian and US English, such as ladyfingers and okra. He mainly chose the Indian English words for the objects, the only exception being pram versus stroller. He did note, however, that he has heard both terms used. In the case of flat and apartment, he clarified that in India, the building would be called an apartments, and a flat would be one unit in the building. This shows that although he has been in the US for a few years, his lexicon is mainly comprised of Indian English words. Next, I had my roommate take the New York Times dialect quiz. The results showed that the most similarity was with the Northeast, especially Boston, based on the fact that he pronounces Mary, Mary, and Mary all differently. Interestingly, although the quiz does not explain what features led to this, Arizona and the Southwest are highlighted as similar regions on the map, indicating that his time at the U of A may have affected his variety of English. Moving on to phonology, we can compare the vowel plot that I made, shown on the right, to a vowel plot of Indian speakers from a 2016 study. Being from South India, my roommate's corresponding points are in blue. His map and the one from the study match fairly well in their general shape, with the major outlying feature being the vowel in bat, which my roommate speaks lower and farther back. Additionally, the vowels from boat, butt, and boot are farther back as compared to the study. Overall, this shows that my roommate's variety of English has a generally similar vowel map to other South Indian English speakers, with some variation, as we would expect. The study's data additionally shows the wide range and diversity of Indian English accents spoken across India. Looking now at stress and rhythm, the syllable count and breakdown shown in the upper right graph was similar to most of my fellow classmates. An interesting point to note is that the L sound in balloon and balance was clearly placed with the second syllable. For the word celery, he tapped out 2 syllables when speaking quickly, but broke into 3 parts when pausing and speaking carefully, indicating a difference in how he might say the words when speaking quickly as compared to careful speech. In contrast, the syllable stresses shown in the bottom left chart had striking differences. In the words photograph and photographer, the stresses were placed 1 syllable later than most of my classmates, and how I have just said them. My roommate says that the word produce, as in food and groceries, is not used in India, so he doesn't have the alternate stress variety commonly used in US English, in which pro is stressed. Taking a more analytical approach to stress and rhythm, the graph on the right is from a 2013 study that compared various aspects of speakers' Indian English depending on their L1 language, Hindi or Telugu. Hindi is a North Indian language, while Telugu is a South Indian language, and they are part of separate language families. My roommate learned to speak English alongside Telugu in the home. I asked him to say the same 8 Turkaic words that were used in the study, and then compared the lengths that the first and second vowels were voiced. Turkaic words have a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. This led to an average of around 1.09. This put him slightly below the data's recorded number. However, when removing the 2 outlying data points where V1 was less than V2, the average is 1.28, which is more similar to the number the study obtained. It is interesting to me to see that my roommate's English is potentially identifiable as South Indian, despite the wide variability in data. In the interview with my roommate, I also took a broad look at the differences between his careful and unmonitored speech. The monitored speech was a standard passage. I also asked him to tell me an exciting story from his childhood, which hopefully produced unmonitored speech. The story he told me was about when a monkey got into his elementary school classroom. In the monitored speech, he held a consistent pitch between around 110 and 130 Hz, while unmonitored story had a wider pitch range varying from around 60 to 150 Hz. In the monitored speech, I observed that my roommate enunciated more clearly, which meant that his words in general had more distinct syllables, and the most obvious of which was when he said Wednesday in the monitored speech, and there was a clear distinction between wedness and day. In general, the unmonitored speech was faster and the words ran together slightly more. In conclusion, after spending most of his time in the United States for the past 2 years, my roommate still retains a mainly Indian English lexicon. The New York Times dialect quiz indicates his accent is most similar to Northeastern English, but he may have picked up some southwestern US English recently while in college. His phonological and stress variations indicate an interesting pattern which matches some studies of South Indian speakers of English. Also, my roommate has a tendency of using a steadier pitch and pronouncing syllables more fully when speaking carefully, while having more pitch variation and less defined syllables when telling an exciting story. These are, of course, just a few of the interesting aspects of his speech that I was able to study. Here are my references, and of course, a big thanks to my roommate for allowing me to study his speech, and thank you all for watching.